Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you guys are my buds. I actually have a bud on the line right now, Taylor from the Attack Action Podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're pretty stoked to have you on, and I've been listening to your podcast since I started getting into Flesh and Blood myself, and I think it's awesome that we got to get this going. But before we get into things, let's tell the listeners a little bit about you. First of all, you're from Northern California.
Yeah, correct. Like we were just talking about, I'm from Eureka, and it's like way at the top. I'm like closer to Oregon than anything else, really. The border. So
Gotcha.
yeah, West Coast on the coast.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm coming at you from the East Coast here in Jersey. So totally different
Hell yeah.
worlds. Yeah. Um, obviously you're into Flesh and Blood. Are you were you ever doing any other kinds of TCGs?
Um, well, like I played a little bit of Magic in high school, but
Mhm.
nothing very serious. Like my friends who also played Magic were much more serious than me and just beat the crap out of me. So I was like, whatever, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
But excuse me, like in probably 2017, me and Isaac, actually, who's the co-host on the Attack Action podcast, we got really into Star Wars Destiny, and yeah, we're really into that for maybe like a whole year or something, and then that game kind of started to go a weird direction, and we just kind of fell off the bandwagon there, and then kind of have been like a couple of lone cowboys traversing the desert, kind of looking for our next game. We tried a bunch of different stuff. Um, and then I got into Flesh and Blood from Team Covenant. I think they had previewed it earlier, but then once the kind of pandemic started again, or not again, but started in earnest, I suppose
Yeah.
they got back into it, and I was like, maybe this game does look cool. And then I bought some stuff and was like, oh, this is rad. And so I showed it to Isaac, and I was like, here it is. This is the game that's gonna get us back into cards again.
Yeah, man.
And he agreed, and then we've just never looked back.
That's awesome. Now, I mean, I'm not too familiar with Star Wars Destiny. So that a Star Wars like card game?
Yeah, so Fantasy Flight made it, and it was like booster packs and in all that. It was their collectible TCG, but really it was, you know, it's not like the other TCGs. Like there was no foil cards
Hmm.
and nothing really collectible about it. It was just kind of like a really expensive living card game.
Gotcha.
But it had dice. That was like the big hook, is that
Oh,
you had like these, your character had a set of dice with all these different symbols on it, and then you would roll your dice, and then you could resolve them, and they would do different things like melee damage or range damage, or let you turn a dice, or mill
yeah.
cards or whatever. So it was really cool because it was like you take an action, I take an action. You know what I mean? It was like super back and forth and uh
Gotcha.
responsive and stuff. Yeah, it was cool, but then it went away from like the elevator pitch is like, how would you like to get a team of your favorite Star Wars characters and fight other people in the Star Wars universe? And you're like, yeah. And then it just turned into like droids piloting starships and economy resources and stuff, and I don't know. It was less cool then.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I could understand that elevator pitch being, it's like, yeah, obviously I'd want to, be my favorite Star Wars character and fight my friends. But I can also, it sounds like I could see where you could make the jump, um, thematically, or at least play style wise, into Flesh and Blood from that. The kind of back and forth, I guess. I mean, Flesh and I came from Magic personally. So, but the nice thing about Flesh and Blood is I've noticing. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of Magic players coming over to Flesh and Blood, especially the lack of organized play and etc. with Magic. But also, you get a lot of board gamers and other TCG players coming into Flesh and Blood, because if it has that feel to it. One of the ways I've gotten some of my friends into it was if I don't if have you ever played Dominion?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it feels like you picked up your deck at the end of a Dominion game and then you started battling somebody with it almost.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's pretty great in that sense. So now your co-host Isaac, and I hope to get him on the podcast as well. How you guys longtime friends?
Oh yeah. So me and Isaac we played on the same soccer team when we were 6 years old. And he's like wearing his belt to soccer practice on the outside of his jersey and shorts and stuff. It was great.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we were best friends since high school and stuff. So
that's all. And you guys are all from that same town in Northern California.
Kinda. Yeah, I grew up an hour south of where I currently live, and Isaac still lives down there. So it's a kind of a commute for us to get together, but it's a rural area, so you're kind of used to driving.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, you wouldn't think it with New Jersey, but I tend to be in a more rural part of it. The part that makes sense to be called the Garden State, not the oil refinery state sometimes. But
yeah, there you go.
But no, that's awesome, man. But now you guys have both played some Road to Nationals, correct? Am I getting that right?
Yeah. Road to Nat season has been really awesome. It comes at a weird time though for me. So I'm a college professor, and so it's right as school starts to ramp up. So I've been insanely busy during Road to Nat season. So Isaac's been to just I think one more than me. He was able to make it up to Portland to play in one. But yeah, so I made it to 2 Road to Nats in the Bay Area this season.
And how'd you guys perform?
We did really well. Isaac, he got in all, if you get him on the pod, he'll get to regale you with all of his glory. But he top 8'd with Azalea up in Portland, which was his big goal. He's a huge Azalea fan and player and stuff. So just kind of getting to showcase that it's possible to do it with her. He was really stoked on that, and I was super stoked on him. He was just one win away. It was funny. We were talking about his Road to Nats and kind of going through all the possible scenarios. And if he had just maybe placed a little lower, he maybe would have played a more favorable matchup and he might have won his quarters. But
oh damn! I mean, Azalea, that's quite that's the feat, man. I mean, I think it's a lot of potential, obviously, with him doing so well with it. But it's also very skill intensive. It feels like.
Totally, yeah, and we've had so many reps on that deck and stuff, and he's really put in a lot of effort, so he really deserves that, that accomplishment of top 8ing.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
And how did you perform?
I did pretty good. I won my first Road to Nats, went 8-0, and then in the other one I played a few weekends ago, I think now, I lost in quarters. Nope, semis. Yep, I lost in semis. So I went 7-1 in that day. So nice. Only lost one game in the 2 Road to Nats I played in, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we're gonna see you in Orlando?
I'm trying to figure out if that is gonna work or not. So we live in the middle of nowhere basically, and so we don't have an international airport that's right here. Not that Orlando's international, but it might as well be. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
you have to take a small plane to get on a bigger plane, et cetera. So it adds up financially and then time wise too.
definitely,
So,
definitely. Well, I
but
hope you
we're gonna
guys
make,
figure it out.
yeah, totally. We're gonna make those plans kind of after Vegas this coming weekend. So, uh, we'll see. Plus, it's kind of like it's hard because it's part of the semester and
Yeah, yeah.
all of that stuff. So we'll see what happens and that sort of thing. So hope
Who-
to make it. We'll see.
Yeah, man. I mean, I hope so too. But now, what were you playing in those Road to Nats?
I was on chain. Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. I think we're going to talk a little bit about Chain later in the podcast because I have some theories. I've been playing with Chain too. I only played one Road to
Oh, cool.
Nationals, and it was my first event. I did very poorly, but
Mm.
had a ton of fun, and it only made me want to get better. So and
Hell yeah, that's the spirit.
yeah, man, it's like if what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, I guess.
Awesome.
But yeah, I got the bug, man. I got the bug bad. I got the bug with Magic years ago, and I still play a lot of Magic, but
Hmm.
Flesh and Blood is definitely on my mind like all the time now, and
Yeah,
obviously I have
totally.
a podcast about it, so obviously
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it that much. So, but yeah, with all that said, man, let's get into this crack pack. Basically, I don't know how much limited you've played of the game.
Quite a bit actually. So the quote unquote like attack action podcast method was, our recommendation was like try to make a little gaming pod during the pandemic. So
Mm-hmm.
we have two other friends that we routinely play with. And so as once we got into the game, we like drafted all of our cards
Awesome.
or I mean, yeah, we got to play draft like quite a lot actually, just with the four of us. So not in like a
A full
and
a full pod. But I mean, hey,
yeah,
listen, you know, in the middle of a pandemic, you do what you can, right? But
yeah,
um,
definitely.
but yeah, no, that's awesome. You play some limited, so I'm gonna crack this pack. It's Arcane Rising. We're hoping to crack. I
Cool.
mean, personally, hoping to crack something pretty expensive, but obviously, the drop rates aren't that great. I've
Right.
learned,
Well, good
but
luck.
yeah. So I'm gonna crack it. I'm gonna get that sound in there in the mic. All right. So we'll start with the generic actions here. So first up, we got Blue Rifting. Uh,
Mhm.
Cost 2, 4 attack, 2 defense. If it hits, you may play your next non-attack action card this turn as though it were an instant. How do you feel about that in like a limited format?
Well, it's a decent blue because it's at like a break point. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But at least in terms of attack value,
Yeah, I guess you have to.
it's okay. That's about it. I would say. It has a interesting hit effect on it, so it makes your opponent definitely want to kind of block it. But you kind of would have to have, you know, be on quite a momentum shift to really make that threatening,
Yeah,
that hit
and
effect anyway.
you'd have to prioritize some non-attack actions throughout the draft, or I mean, if you had sealed, you just
Hmm.
make sure your deck has them. Next
Yeah.
up, we got Sunkiss, yellow, uh,
Hmm.
0 cost, generic action, 2 defense, gain 2 life. If you played a card named Moonwish this turn, draw a card, and Sunkiss gains go again. Life gain in Flesh and Blood. How do you feel about it?
I think it used to be way better when the game was much slower,
Mm-hmm.
like, and especially in Blitz too. We saw, you see a lot of sigils being played and that sort of thing. But now the game, is so fast that you just, don't really have the opportunity to play something that's just only purpose there is to just gain you life. I think in limited though, I think those cards can be pretty strong, uh, because like your opponent most likely has limited number of threats. So if you can kind of outlast them a little bit and kind of keep peppering them with damage, it could be a viable strategy.
Yeah, I can see that. And I mean, obviously, if you got some moon wishes in your pool,
Yeah.
I mean, it's something to chain off of. But next we got lead the charge, blue, 0 cost generic action, 2 defense. Next time you play an action card with cost 2 or greater this turn, gain 1 action point. Go again.
Not bad.
Yeah, to me seems like if you're building up some big turns, this is a card to have, and obviously pitch for blue is always useful to have
Yeah.
at least some.
Yeah, in this limited format for Arcane Rising, like 0 cost, go again, non-attack actions are pretty good with like Viscerai, right? To get like Nebula Blade turned on and start making rune chants and that sort of thing. So
Oh
they
yeah,
can be pretty valuable.
definitely. And then actually we have Moonwish next, red, which is cost 2, 5 attack, 2 defense. You may put a card from your hand on top of your deck rather than pay Moonwish's pitch cost. If Moonwish hits, search your deck for a card named Sunkiss, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So, I mean, to get maximum value, you're going to want Sunkiss in your deck.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the kind of dream play where it's a good card for Kano to have, and then you have your like, zap, your red zap on top, and you can Kano that off the top and
Oh, true.
deal an extra 3 damage.
Oh yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. Yeah, wouldn't even have thought of that if you weren't here, Taylor. We're gonna skip the equipment and rares and move to the hero actions. First up, we got over the loop or overloop. It's a blue, cost 2, 3 attack, 3 defense. If overloop hits, put it on the bottom of your deck when the chain link resolves and has boosts, which if you don't know what boost is, as an additional cost to play overloop, you may banish the top card of your deck if it is this word has been giving me such misery. Mechanologist card. Overloop
Nailed
keeps
it.
going. Yeah. So obviously it's a mechanologist action. So
Right.
what any experience with mechanologist dash and boost at all?
Yeah, it can be pretty cool in limited for sure. You can kind of it's like a wild beast though. You have to be careful that you don't just like boost yourself into oblivion and then you don't have any cards and then your opponent just wins.
Yeah.
The Arcane Rising sealed or in draft format is just really weird because you have like uh 2 characters that don't really have a weapon, and you have the pistol, which is kind of an interesting weapon. I don't know, it just gets it's a weird set.
Seems wacky for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I've stayed away from dash in general, just because I obviously tested against it a little bit, but it seems very complex, and the boost. I mean, especially in limited, it feels like you could easily boost yourself. Like out of the
Yeah,
gate.
I mean, one of the kind of great strategies though with dash and limited is you can kind of just play out, thin your deck, play out all the generics early game, and then once you've pitched all your mechanologist cards, you have 100% hit rate, and so you can kind of really turn on the gas kind of mid game, mid to late game, and that,
True.
can be pretty tough for your opponent to handle.
Nice. So we got a blue Ridge Rider shot, which is a ranger action, cost 0. It's an arrow, so arrows can only be played from the arsenal, and only if you control a bow. It's got 2 attack, 3 defense. If Ridge Rider shot is put into your arsenal face up, opt 1. So could you explain, like, for listeners a little bit, like, obviously Azalea has the ability to turn your arsenal face up, correct?
Well, kinda.
Yeah.
Her legendary piece of equipment allows you to turn any face down card in Arsenal. It's a once per turn action. Turn it face up and you get to opt one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you were to like pay for Death Dealer, right, the card goes in face up.
Yeah.
Or if it comes in off of Azalea's ability off the top of the deck, But then the opt one for that is a little superfluous at that point because you've already
Now,
done your Azalea ability.
what's the difference between face up, face down?
Oh, there isn't. It's just for Azalea, her hero ability allows her to put the top card of her deck face up, and if it's an
Gotcha.
arrow, it gains dominate. Um,
Gotcha.
so that's the only bit of design there.
Yeah, yeah. I guess
Yeah.
it's a good way to have like a onboard indicator of what's going on too. So
hmm
next we have a Rune Blade action, Rune Flash. It's yellow, costs 3. It costs 1 less to play for each rune chant you control. Go again. It's got 3 attack, 3 defense. Seems like a good Viscerai card if you're really going off with rune chants.
Yeah, it's kind of a staple. It's you pair that with one of those like a Sun Kiss, and then you got a couple of rune chants up, and then you've gained 2 life. You've got go again, and you make a rune chant after you've played it. It's not bad.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Next we got Index Wizard action, red. Cost 0. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Put 1 card from among them on top of your deck, and the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Defense 2. I guess if you're playing Kano, you want some card selection, some yeah, you want to make sure you get what you need on top, right?
Yeah, I think this card is pretty terrible though.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it lets you to look at 5 cards. The red one maybe, but
hmm
if you want red cards in your Kano deck, you could pick something better. So, it also defends for 2, so that's like not great. Yeah, I just don't like I mean, I guess it's fine if you were to really use it as a way to set up those 5 cards on the bottom of your deck rather than setting up the 1 card on top.
Yeah.
Might be kind of the better use, but I think putting Whisper of the Oracle, if you get those in your deck, that's much better
Yeah,
of a card to have anyway.
it seems like you kind of want a little more value off of your actions, your non-attack
Yeah,
actions in Kano.
yeah, yeah.
Next we got Bloodspill Invocation, so Rune Blade action, Aura, red,
hmm
cost 1, has go again, 2 defense. When an attack action card you control hits, destroy Bloodspill Invocation, then create 3 Rune Chant tokens. When your hero is dealt damage, destroy Bloodspill Invocation. Seems good in Viscerai, right? I mean, you gotta. I mean, if it hits once, right? That
Yeah,
is.
so the tricky part for sure is that it has to be an attack action, not your weapon. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but in terms of like, non-attack actions with Go Again, it's kind of a premium card in that respect. And it is a Rune Blade card that has Go Again, so it helps you build rune chants and stuff. But most of the time that in limited it's definitely pretty good because it kind of adds a must block kind of to any of your cards in
Yeah.
terms of just like the amount of rune chance you'll get after it and that sort of thing. But obviously the design is they understand how powerful that card can be, so it's like pretty easy to get rid of. You just got to deal a
Yeah.
little damage on your opponent's turn. So not very good against Kano for sure because he can just hit you with some arcane damage on your turn, and then
Yeah.
that card's basically gone.
And not good against probably the mirror of Viscerai.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I guess if it hits once, that's a great amount of value. It seems like. So I guess you could build your turn around that. But next we got Voltic Bolt, yellow, cost 2.
Nice. Yeah.
3 defense, deals 4 arcane damage to target hero. This is a
Yeah, great card.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a on its face. I mean, he's just straight up, value for
Yep.
your Kano deck. So
Yeah, park that in Arsenal, block with 3 cards, keep a blue, use the Crucible, and pump that Voltic Bolt up to 5. It's just a good, efficient turn cycle.
awesome. And we got a crack bobble, dude. You excited?
Oh, hell yeah. Those are pretty rare.
Yeah. Next, so we got our equipment, Null Rune Hood, which is Arcane Barrier 1, head, equipment generic, and 0 defense.
Nice.
I guess good against Kano and Rune Chance and
Yep.
Our first rare is Silver the Tip, red, cost 1. It's a ranger action. It's got 2 defense. If you have no cards in your arsenal, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may put an arrow card from among them face up into your arsenal and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Go again.
Yep. Not bad. I mean, it's a pretty good card to Arsenal, I think.
Yeah.
And then it helps your turn out for sure. And with that Ridge Rider shot we talked about earlier, allow you to opt, and then potentially Azalea in a better card. So it has uses for sure.
Yeah. I guess where would you say we're at picking? Let's say this was a draft so far.
Oh, right. What would I pick? It would definitely be it might be the Null Rune Hood. Equipment is kind of always at a premium.
True.
And making sure that you can get Arcane Barrier in case somebody is drafting Wizard is really important, because you can then just like not have any Arcane Barrier,
Yeah.
and no armor that does anything. You might be left with like Mage Master Boots and Bracers of Belief, which both don't have Arcane Barrier. So the Null Rune Hood becomes kind of a premium for sure. Having a hard time remembering what the other generics were. It was Sunkiss, Moonwish.
Yeah, Sunkiss, Moonwish, Lead the Charge.
Oh yeah, Blue Lead the Charge. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, I would say probably the Null Rune Hood might be my first pick.
Yeah.
It's kind of the more universally useful card there.
Well, we do have a Majestic here. 3 of a kind.
Ooh, that's spicy.
Yes,
oh, nice.
Sir. Red, cost 1, ranger action, draw 3 cards until end of turn. You may only play cards from your arsenal. Go again.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty sweet card to me.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It can definitely be hard to get that to play that many cards kind of out of your arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
But it is pretty sweet being able to draw that many cards.
Does Isaac play this in his constructed deck?
No, I don't think anybody really does, actually. Just because it's so hard to continually get the cards into your deck. There is like kind of this wild OTK strategy with Azalea where you can set up your deck with 3 of the kind being one of the cards you draw, and then you have your take aims and a big arrow and stuff. So if you knew your pitch order, you could play 3 of a kind, draw 3 cards, take aims, all have reload, so you can play them in succession from your arsenal. Gotcha. And then Azalea in a big dominated arrow type of deal. But it just hasn't worked out in constructed. It's just a little too clunky and a little too hard to pull off. But I think with some of these new cards and New Horizon, the new Ranger Legendary, I think it'll be a lot easier to utilize 3 of a kind for sure.
I definitely agree with that there. And then our foil is Rune Flash Blue. Cost 3.
Yeah.
Cost 1 less for each rune chant. Go again. 2 attack, 3 defense. It's a pretty cool looking foil. But yeah, I
Oh
mean, I
yeah.
guess I think Three of a Kind's a good place to start actually with talking about the new set, Tales of Aria. First of all, have you been looking at spoilers?
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah. Oh, sorry. Can I not? Can
I
I
mean,
curse on your
yeah,
podcast?
yeah. I mean, go for it. No, I mean,
Oh,
you
okay,
know,
cool.
but it's yeah. I mean, it's been exciting actually. Looking at some of these cards. And what are your initial thoughts?
Gosh, it's so hard. Initially, I'm pretty excited. I'm really interested in to see like what the Earth kind of archetype is, right? So
Mm-hmm.
at this point, we know we have Lexi who has essence of ice and lightning, and we have Oldheim who has essence of ice and earth. So we can kind of assume that the third hero is Earth Lightning, I believe. Um, and just to
Yeah.
kind of see what that Earth archetype is going to be. Ice is obviously kind of a tax situation where everything costs more and it, hinders your opponent and stuff. But I guess to be kind of more succinct here, I think that Tails is going to make the game a little bit better. We'll obviously shift away from kind of more just red line aggro decks,
Yeah.
and the game will get a little bit longer, which I think it needs to be,
Mm-hmm.
to be more interactive, and kind of more tactical. So it looks great. I'm really, really, really excited about this set.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 100% behind you on that. I mean, to me, I mean, looking at Oldheim,
Hmm.
as a Magic player, I'm looking at him like, wow, this is like a straightforward, legit, like defensive control, death and taxes
Yeah.
style hero. And I mean, it sucks. I'm just building my chain deck now. I honestly think these frostbite tokens could really throw a wrench in all these seeds of agonies running around. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we'll see. It's going to shake up the format big time. I think that's really cool. And then Lexi is the new ranger, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And she has the ability to have the second arsenal slot, correct? That's the her it's her head equipment, but
Yeah. The New Horizon, I think, is what it's
yeah,
called. Yeah.
yeah, New Horizon. It doesn't. I
Yeah.
mean, it hardly looks like a head equipment, but whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, right.
But that seems really sweet, and that seems like a something that might look or might make Three of a Kind look a little bit more appealing in a deck that has multiple slots for their arsenal.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just having that extra spot to get a card into, or use Shiver to load another arrow and give it. Well, I guess Shiver gives stuff dominate, not go again. But
Mm-hmm.
using Lexi's ability to give stuff go again really makes that card much more viable for sure.
I mean, part of me was a little disappointed looking at my Skullbone cross wrap in my binder. I was like, oh man, like when I was like, I pulled that card, um,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh yeah, I think there's gonna be a new Ranger in the new set. I mean, it might go up, and then
Right.
I was like, oh, I guess not, but it is what it is. Still, obviously, still a good card and will be sought after, but um,
Totally. I mean, I think it's good design, right? You can't like what a power bump that would be. Like already Skullbone Cross Wrap has like a really powerful
mhm.
repeatable ability, and that's kind of the strength of Azalea is her card velocity, is she gets to see so many more cards than her opponent does and make so many more decisions in manipulating her deck. But to be able to do that and have two arsenal slots would probably be a little too much there. So I'm kind of glad it makes you think of how you want to build your deck. Like that's kind of what I think the game needs is multiple cards in the same slots,
Yeah,
so you can really kind of uh, build your deck around your kind of equipment choices and vice versa. I think that's just really cool design for sure.
absolutely. And I guess that kind of brings us to kind of something I wanted to talk about. Like when you um, look at a new set, like how do we start to approach like what kind of decks we're going to want to build? How does it affect decks that we've already built? How many, how etc. And you've been playing for a lot longer than I have, and you've seen a lot of new sets come out. When a new set comes out, what are some things that you look at initially? I mean, I'm sure generics are probably some of the first things you look at.
Yeah. I mean, man, you're the master of segues here. These is two great segues right in a row, crushing it.
I
uh,
have some skills in podcast now.
oh, nice, nice, yeah. Well, it shows. It shows.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, uh, gosh, I mean, well, the weird thing about this set is it doesn't. I don't think we're gonna have any generics, right? So if you like look at the card gallery for the spoilers,
Mm-hmm.
there's like a whole section for the new hero that hasn't been spoiled, but there's no, we haven't seen a single generic card. They're just either element or traded class cards.
True,
Uh,
true. Now, do you find that to be good for the game?
I find it to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
uh, I think, I don't know how much those generics are going to, or the lack of generics are going to affect the game. Because we see in Monarch, right, the more tailored the generics are for the limited play, that the less viability they have in constructed play, right? Like there's some of them that some people are using, like Captain's Call or Zealous Belting or Out Muscle and that sort of thing. But those are really just kind of like edge case scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of the Majestics, like Exude Confidence, hasn't seen a lot of play, and that's like a really, really powerful card. But it's not like a staple card that we've seen with like Command and Conquer or Enlightened Strike. You
Yeah.
know, even before Monarch, Art of War was really kind of out of favor, and nobody was even running that.
Really,
Um,
I didn't know that actually.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, it wasn't so popular as it is now. Kind of just right at the end of the uh, Crucible meta. It just wasn't really being ran as much because it doesn't block and you lose a card, and when the games are these kind of mid-range grindy games, it's yeah, it just wasn't pulling its weight in the
Yeah,
sideboard.
that makes sense. And
Yeah.
and so obviously we have two heroes, and there's going to be a third. Obviously, I'm sure we'll see that this week. I was checking Twitter right before we started, and we hadn't seen it yet.
Yep.
Um, People are thinking wizard, maybe. I'm not sure.
I
Um,
don't know. I don't know either. I mean, so we have two pieces of equipment now with Spell Void and Arcane Barrier,
mm-hmm.
right? So does that I mean we know they designed the sets for limited play, so those have to be, you know, utilized abilities in this set if you pull them. So we can,
Yeah.
I think, assume that there's going to be this third character that has arcane damage of some sort.
Yeah. So I mean that's possible, and I guess somebody on Twitter had shown me a list of the initial, I guess, lore books
Hmm.
that they had sent out. So I
Right.
mean, I guess there's a couple different classes that we haven't seen. Um, we haven't seen. I had it up here. We haven't seen Bard,
Right. Yep.
Alchemist. We not seen Alchemist? I don't think
No,
so.
no.
Necromancer, um, and Assassin. So I mean, those could come at any point, obviously. But
Right.
I know a lot of people are clamoring for some more wizard support because people Kano's definitely a fan favorite. It's a tough
Oh yeah,
deck to
yeah.
really get going, but so I guess we'll see. But yeah, it's interesting that no generics. The one thing I've seen, or one thing that I've noticed since I started playing is these. It can be a little frustrating when you get these auto include generics like Command and Conquer,
Right.
even Arcanite's Skullcap,
Yeah.
and because all of a sudden those I mean if they can go in a deck, all of a sudden they're really really expensive, and
Right.
yeah, so it is interesting, but initially something that as I said before, Oldheim is really catching my eye, and with each new spoiler for um, basically anything ice and Guardian, it seems like his deck is just building himself at this point.
Yeah, so we had like a pretty loaded question with like deck building in a new set and looking at it and stuff, and then the decks that build themselves and that sort of thing. So I where to begin, I guess. I
Yeah.
think so, right. So the design with talents, right, means that you can have these kind of great little packages basically for these heroes
Mm-hmm.
that don't become broken because they can't be used with other heroes, right? So you can have these really cool, like all of these cool uh, guardian cards um, hanging out, you
Yeah.
know, so like, gosh, where am I going? So they can be more kind of like
Streamlined.
pushing the yeah,
Yeah.
or pushing the envelope, right? And obviously they want you to play those cards in your elemental guardian deck, right? Because that helps kind of bring out the archetype. So instead of like we see with the legacy heroes that kind of have more flexibility in the way you can build them, right? So you can
Mm-hmm.
have aggro ninja or control ninja type of deal. It's like maybe a little less feasible with a smaller card pool with
Yeah.
more heroes. That makes sense. So
Absolutely.
rather than building up every hero to play every style, we can just have different heroes that play different styles.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good point, and almost and it's a way, like you said, you can push the envelope. So it's a smaller card pool, and you can only really do so much with it. But
Right.
you can push the power level of the cards, but you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about it going too rampant.
Yep.
In a way.
Exactly.
And now, so I guess I like to use Oldheim as a
Yeah. Yeah.
as an example. In terms of deck building, he has the for those of you guys who don't know, once per turn defense reaction, 3 resources. If an Earth card is pitched this way, prevent the next 2 damage that will be dealt to Oldheim this turn. If an Ice card is pitched this way, the attacking hero puts a card from their hand on top of their deck. This is a really great effect. So I look at that, I'm like, all right, this deck is going to need to be filled with blues, right?
Right.
You want to have to pitch the least amount of cards to activate that ability, because I think that ability is going to be really important. And then also they spoiled the weapon, Winter's Wail, which is also
Yeah.
a pretty sweet looking hammer. Um, it it is so then I gotta regain my train of thought. So then when I'm looking at these ice cards, these elemental guardian cards, I'm like, all right, well, let's see what the blues do. Are the blues going to be good enough to be thrown into this deck? Doesn't make sense. Obviously, you got to have a nice balance of reds too. But what is what's the end goal there with your I guess distribution of pitch colors? Now, I personally, I've only really built decks that are pretty much net decks, and tried them out. I haven't really
Yeah.
built a ton of decks from scratch. And I would like to hear your theories, at least in general, about
Yeah.
your red, yellow, blue distribution when building a deck?
Well, okay, so my first piece of advice in when a new set comes out is to play as much sealed and draft
Mm-hmm.
as you can, because that kind of allows you to learn the cards much easier, right? And
Mm-hmm.
forces you to play with cards potentially that you're like, well, I can't fit this into my 60, so I'm just not going to use it. But if you are kind of forced to use it in that limited environment, you can kind of find, uh, you know, ways to play with that card that maybe you previously hadn't thought of. I think that that's kind of a big deal. Um, excuse me, and even like gameplay lines that you might not have noticed before or thought of initially building your deck. So I think just playing sealed and draft really, helps you learn the card pool, the new card pool, even better, and can improve your deck building later. That being said, in terms of like resource ratios, I mean, it just depends on what your deck is trying to do. Like obviously you're going to need a higher cost curve in Elemental Guardian in Oldheim because he has
Mm-hmm.
cards that cost 4, cards that cost 6. And he has that ability that costs 3 resources, and Winter's Wail costs 3. So you're definitely going to want a high count of blues. But I mean, initially, right, when you get a bunch of new cards and you're building a deck, just try to put together uh, the most logical amount of cards to make as close to 60 as possible. Don't like throw in 80 and have like a sideboard and stuff. Just try to get as close to 60 as you can
Mm-hmm.
with what the cards, like you said, like the cards that are building the deck itself, right? Like you're not going to break the format on your first try, and the amount of skill that's involved in Flesh and Blood with new heroes and stuff, it takes a bit of time to learn. So just put together, the most obvious deck. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we'll just, this is just an example. Like, okay, we'll just do Ice Oldheim. So he has the majority of Ice cards,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just trying to be as disruptive as possible and cast these like big ice attacks with hit effects and stuff. And we'll just see how that goes and see how I can pilot it and how it plays into kind of the current meta and that sort of thing. And then just like kind of, then go from there and using that as your template rather than being like, well, I think a real edge case scenario is going to be like this, and this is really tricky with this generic, and et cetera. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have all these tricks, and you don't have like a cohesive game plan. And then you're like, oh, Oldheim sucks. Like it just doesn't work. So just chill. You just got to chill, play
Yeah,
draft and sealed.
yeah. Well, I mean, I like that point about draft and sealed, and limited in general is a great way to. It's like a lot of trial and error, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially in Flesh and Blood, there's not like a ton of great resources about limited right now. Everybody's really
Yeah.
focused on
Totally.
classic constructed, and they're
Mhm.
getting out there for like the callings and whatnot. But we do have 2 limited callings
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
between Orlando and Las Vegas. So the resources will be coming for that. But yeah, it's a great way to get some trial and error because yeah, like you said, you can focus on ice, and maybe that just doesn't feel like it's really coming together. And so you kind of switch over to Earth, see how that kind of
Hmm.
strategy at least fits your play style.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, I mean that's a great point. Um, so are there any Tales of Aria cards that are really sticking out to you that might not be a problem, but you might start to see a lot of like almost your seeds of agony of of the next meta.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not really sure because we haven't gotten a ton of those kind of powerful generics, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
like a few, uh, maybe like Chill to the Bone, maybe is going to be one, or Entwine Lightning is pretty good, a zero costed attack for 4.
Yeah.
Um, but for the majority, most of the cards we're seeing are like legendaries, majestics,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the commons, a few rares and that sort of thing. They're just really kind of been showcasing kind of the power level of stuff right now, and not so much kind of the breadth of what's going to happen between all of the cards.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. One card I keep looking at is Winter's Bite, the discard card.
yeah, 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 that one's really good.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting because I mean I'm interested to play with it. Hopefully not against it, um, yeah, I mean I look at something like that. That seems so much so different from a lot of what we're playing
Yeah,
right now. It's really gonna
yep,
actually add just a whole nother. I mean, it's definitely gonna make games longer, like you were saying earlier, which is I think a lot better for the game right now. Um,
right. And
but
it's good in all colors, right? Like you said, like Seeds of
mhm.
Agony is, because it's basically, it could be any attack when they're at like 1 health. You know what I mean? Because they have to get rid of a card. It just strips a card no matter what, which is insane.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, it's I mean, when when you have 4 cards in hand, it's that's 25% of your plan.
Yeah,
And
totally. And there's a scenario too where you've used Oldheim's defense reaction ability kind of at the end of your opponent's turn, and
mm-hmm,
it denies them the card they want to arsenal, and then you come up with Winter's Bite, and now they literally only have 3 cards in hand.
mm-hmm.
It's just brutal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely it's gonna start challenging your opponent's decision making, which
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely enjoy in a game. So
Totally. It's so disruptive, right?
mm-hmm,
All of the cards we've seen so far are just really focused on, attacking you from all angles, like putting pressure on your arsenal, putting pressure on your hand, putting pressure on your resources. You know, it's
definitely.
just really, really interesting. And is I think who was it? My friend Colin,
Mm-hmm.
aka the People's Champion. He was saying like it feels like every time a new set comes out, I have to relearn how to play this game, and I think that's like fairly accurate.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that for sure. I mean, these frostbite tokens,
Oh yeah,
I think they're gonna. I mean, that's gonna completely change the met. Just like the fact that people are gonna be getting them. Like the
yeah.
aggro katsu and chain are just they're gonna be brutalized by this, and hopefully not to the point where they're unplayable, but because I know a lot of people invested quite a bit of money into chain and katsu.
We'll see, right? Like that's kind of the deal is this all seems good on paper, and then you got to put together a 60 card deck
Mm-hmm.
that kills chain and gives him frostbite. Does this whole thing you think it's going to do, and that the chain deck is much more tuned than your disruptive ice deck. Will I
Absolutely.
don't think it'll take that long for people to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But initially it might not just be like you just slap these cards together and it just beats chain. It's not going to be that simple. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
And the nice thing about a paper only TCG is that people won't be slamming it on like a online client and already figure out the format in 12 hours. So we'll get like some brewing, some scientific experiments with these decks before
yeah,
we figure out any kind of meta, which is nice. But
yeah, yep,
yeah,
exactly.
man. But yeah, I mean, this has all been great. I'm really happy that you came onto the podcast. Obviously, you have any other comments on Tales of Aria or anything that you'd want people to know? Obviously, please pitch your stuff Your
Oh yeah.
socials, your podcast.
Yeah, so in terms of like Tales of Aria, I'm just really excited to see what this third hero is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the Earth theme, whatever it's going to be, uh, power or something, I don't know. Is I'm really looking forward to figuring that out and seeing what that is. So, and then I think that'll bring this whole set into kind of a more clear vision
Mm-hmm.
of what's gonna, happen and that sort of thing. But uh, so I look forward to that. And then my socials, so like we said at the top of the show, I'm one half of the Attack Action podcast. And you can find us wherever you find podcasts, basically on Spotify, iTunes, and Google. And I'm on Twitter at BattleBro Taylor. We have an Instagram, the Attack Action Podcast, Facebook, the Attack Action Podcast, email, same thing, Attack Action Podcast at Gmail. Yeah,
Awesome.
check it out if you haven't already. And Tommy Fresh, I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's been
It's been a
great.
real pleasure. We're all in a content creator Discord, and it's been nice to kind of see all this content being made for Flesh and Blood, and I'm happy to be a part of it, and happy that we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really great. It's a great game. We're all pretty passionate about it, and yeah, I'm excited to see where the game goes. I'm excited to see how these callings go, and hope to see you down in Orlando. Obviously,
Yeah, maybe.
if it's feasible. I mean, I'm working on the financials for myself currently too, but
Yeah.
it's hopefully should be a good time. And you're going to Vegas?
Yeah, we'll be at Vegas. Me and Isaac and kind of the extended Attack Action podcast family. We're all going to be there, and just really looking forward to that whole experience. It's going to be a ton of fun, And yeah, it's just great, Tommy. I wanted to say that it's nice to have more podcasts out there in the Flesh and Blood space. We're not too much of a YouTube channel ourselves, so it's
Mm-hmm.
it's good that we get more people in that space, and you're doing a good job, and you got a great vibe, and I just really appreciate that you're out there doing your thing, and
Yeah, man.
having me on is great. I really, really just appreciate that from the bottom of my heart.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I'm I post these on on YouTube, but just audio. I'm just an audio guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm in the car all day for my job, so I listen to
Yep.
a ton of audio podcasts. And it's just what I like to do. So, and yeah, I guess I should plug my own stuff for the people who don't follow me. I'm on Twitter. You can find me at Fresh Buds Pod. And then you can find us right now on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and then and anchor.com, anchor.fm/ Fresh and Buds. Still waiting on iTunes to approve us for some reason.
Right.
But
Yeah. Doesn't that take forever for no reason at all?
yeah, I mean, and they denied me once. They said that there was something wrong with my logo, so I had to change the logo or whatever. So we'll see.
Mm,
It'll get there
yeah.
eventually, and then
Yeah. Totally.
tons of people use Spotify, and people have been really enjoying it.
Hell yeah.
Um,
Yeah. You're doing great, man. And uh, we hope to have you on the pod sometime in the future. And anytime you need,
yeah,
the
no,
Falcon of the West on your pod, just let me know. I'll
awesome.
come on anytime.
Yeah, and gotta get your cohort on here too, and and I will be watching coverage this weekend of Vegas, and hopefully see you guys killing it. Hopefully see you there on Sunday, right in the top 64.
Yeah. I mean, you can hope so. We've been crunching
Yeah.
the numbers, and boy, it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight for sure. But
Well, we here at the Fresh and Bloods podcast hope the best for you guys,
thanks.
and yeah, man. That's gonna do it, and everybody have a good and safe week. See ya.